Hello, hello. I'm just waiting for all the attendees. It looks like are loading a couple, and then we will get started. But welcome. Mhm. All right, welcome, welcome. I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Research and Involvement Series, which is a component of STEP, the Summer Transfer Enrichment Program, to support incoming transfer students. Congrats on your admission. I know it's an exciting time. So yeah, happy to be there and happy to be here with you. And I'll talk a little bit about my role, but briefly, my name is Elizabeth. My pronouns are she, her, aya, and I am the Research and Involvement Coordinator at the Transfer Hub. If you haven't registered for a STEP, please do so. Here's a QR code. Okay, put that up for a little bit. All right. So Research and Involvement Series, this is the second session in the Research and Involvement Series, and these are virtual webinars, workshops offered throughout August at 12 p.m. So after today, the next one will be next Monday, where we will talk about research at UCSD. And then next Friday, we'll talk about just research and more research stuff, labs, areas, faculty, and more. And then the week after, we will have a session on how to outreach to faculty for research opportunities. So if you're interested, please join us. They will be good sessions. Something to note about these webinars is that the webinar format on Zoom, we can't see you, the participants, but you can see us, the panelists. And so you'll see that we have a Q&A feature. So you're able to ask questions or submit questions on the Q&A. And then one of us behind the scenes can do our best to get back to your question if we're not already answering it live. So yeah, and then we'll also be sending some links through the chat. So feel free to also look through our chat as well. So just a heads up. And then we do have a couple of, we're almost like at the tail end of STEP now. So we do have a couple of sessions coming up. There's an airplane. So tomorrow we have transfer talks on how to pay your bills. And then the following week we'll have how getting to and around UCSD. So campus, transportation, and parking questions will be answered then. And then 2 weeks we'll have Meet the Transfer Hub, and that will be our last transfer talks, but then we'll have other stuff happening as well. So yeah, please register for STEP. And then today we're gonna do a resume workshop. But before we get into that, I just wanted to kind of also talk a little bit about the Research and Involvement Series and my role. So both in the series and my role as Research and Involvement Coordinator, it gives you an opportunity to learn about the ways to get involved on campus, like all things research, and while also getting resume support. I'm a resource for you year-round. So like I mentioned, I'm at the Triton Transfer Hub. I take virtual and in-person appointments. And so you'll be able to do that throughout the academic year. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the Career Launch Program, just because this is the resume workshop. So the Triton Transfer Hub hosts something called the Career Launch Program, which is a 4-week program that we just piloted for the first time this past spring quarter, right? And so it's we require students to apply for it first, and then we accept a cohort of about 18 to 20 students, transfer students in particular. And in this program, it's kind of like a little boot camp where you're going to be able to explore career fields, create relationships with professionals and network, and knowing how to like cultivate those relationships, job and internship searches as well. And then overall, just like improve your self-confidence and in the professional realm, right? And career prep. So if this is of interest of you, more details are going to come in late fall quarter, early winter quarter. If you follow our social media or if you're on our newsletter, we'll definitely be having more info on that too. Or you can also come to the hub sometime in fall quarter to just ask and check in. So, great. All right, so we'll start off our workshop today with a pre-workshop activity. So if you can all take a second to scan the QR code, and I'm just gonna switch screens really quick. But here is the participation link. And if, thank you, Simon. Simon can send the participation link. And so I'm just gonna switch my screens really quick. All right. So here's the same QR code, but you can also join if you're on a browser, menti.com, and use that code, or you can click the link that Simon put in the chat. So any of those three ways is how you can join the Mentimeter. And so how it works is that, oh, great. It looks like people are already figuring it out. Yeah. So if you can submit a couple of words, I think you can submit more than one word about how you feel about crafting a resume. So we'll just watch this and see. Overwhelmed, confused, okay. Need more info, underqualified, unsure. Gotcha. We got 6 responses. I'll wait a couple of more, a minute or so. Nervous. Overwhelmed so far looks like the big one. Underqualified. Overwhelmed is a popular one. Okay. Intimidated. Yeah. Intimidated, unsure, and overwhelmed. I see a pattern here. Confused, underprepped, excited. We got one excited. Okay, need more info, needing some guidance for sure. Yeah, I see some of you put some phrases. Feel free to put phrases too to kind of give us an idea on how we're feeling. Yeah. Yeah, totally understandable, right? It's you're going into UCSD, right? And you're probably also thinking about post-graduation maybe, or just in general, right? Applying to like research programs, applying to research labs, or maybe you're applying to a job or something like that. And yeah, definitely understandable feeling kind of unsure, overwhelming, and intimidated. And we're here to validate that. Definitely, it's okay to feel that way. I think all of us at some point have felt either unsure, overwhelmed, or intimidated about resumes, CVs, and cover letters. Yeah, needing some guidance. Sure, not enough experience. All right. Yeah, so that gives us an idea of how we're feeling now. And my goal, hopefully, is to get some responses that are a little different to these to see how we feel after our presentation. Yeah, thank you so much for submitting, and we can kind of get an idea of like where people are at, and then you can also see where your peers are at too. So it sounds like you're not alone on it too. So with that, I will stop sharing and I will introduce Ron Reyes and Bianca Portal. Ron Reyes will be presenting for us from the Career Center about resume and cover letter considerations. So Ron Reyes is an associate director at the Career Center, and Bianca Portal is also an associate director at the Career Center. So they're great folks. And yeah, I'll take it away. So Ron.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the intro. So us here at the Career Center are hopefully going to help with some of those concerns and anxiety you have about resumes and cover letters. We have a lot to cover. I'm going to try and shorten and simplify where we can to kind of make it easier for you and hopefully a little bit less overwhelming. The goal is to at least give you a taste of the different things that we want to go over and help you start putting things together in a way that is manageable. So real quickly, I have a lot of goals. We'll see if I get through all of them. Just a quick intro about what we do to help you guys with the process. Some additional considerations that you can think about to kind of help get you in the mode for, resume work and thinking about how you want to approach, thinking about work and building experience, followed by kind of going over differences between, what's a resume, what's a curriculum vitae, there is a difference, cover letter, and then some final tips. And hopefully we will have a little bit of time to go over Q&A. Additionally, I'm going to be providing the slide deck over to the Transfer Hub. That way, if you do want a copy, I like to make these things easily accessible for students. So real quick, we have a lot of people here at the Career Center. So we're all here to help you figure out what you want to put on a resume. Where do you want to go applying for different jobs and opportunities? What do you want to talk about professionally? So whether you're in arts, humanities, non-STEM, STEM, or you're looking at applying to graduate programs, whether it's in healthcare, law, or any of the other types of master's and PhD, there is someone here at the Career Center that has a focus or ability to help support you with a lot of those questions and planning. So I just wanted to do a shout out to all my amazing colleagues. We're all here to kind of support you in that process and make sure that you understand that it's not just one of us, but a whole team that you have access to here at the Career Center. Some of the things that we do along your professional development support is we do career consulting. That also consists of, sometimes applying for graduate programs. That is part of professional career planning. We do career fairs, professional schools. We have professional development series, workshops, and programming that we do year round. We invite employers to come on campus outside of career fair time so that you can actually talk to them about maybe being a good candidate, or they could tell you what they're looking for. We have on-campus interviewing that happens a lot of times, depending on the employer that wants to just directly hire from campus. And then we have a ton of online resources which are included in the slide deck for students to access later. So I just wanted to give you a quick top down. These are things, hopefully, as you are getting started here at UCSD, that you know that are available and that are here to help you through the process while you are with us. Jumping into some personal and professional considerations for resume, I do appreciate seeing the Mentimeter to kind of see where everybody's at, because there is something that I feel that the common denominator a lot of times is a lot of students starting out don't have a lot of confidence in putting a resume together, and that's okay. Right. And the reason it's okay is because a lot of times when you are in your process of going through your educational journey, there's not as many opportunities for you at start to start building these skills and qualifications that you're hoping to have and put together, and can be very intimidating. Right. So one of the things that we try and do here is give you a knowledge base and a strategy so that hopefully we can help build your confidence in applying to jobs, building experience, putting a resume together, and putting yourself out there. But I wanted to acknowledge, all the things that you're feeling right now are very common and usually have to deal with, building a personal confidence in what you already have. Okay. So some tips as we think about how do I better present myself and building confidence in what I'm putting out there as I go into the professional field is focus on the things that you can control, right? Research the things that you're applying to so that you have a better understanding of what they might want to ask you and what are the areas that are really exciting for you to get into based off of your interests, right? Know that everyone has different things that they're really well versed in or have skills and predispositions for. We have tools on the Career Center website if you're not sure to see where your strengths are. So, that's another thing that I would recommend to kind of help build your confidence and know how you're going to position and market yourself on a resume. Other things that you can do are create a confidence database, as well as just have appointments with us to kind of build your overall understanding, work a shop through things that you're trying to highlight about yourself, right? And then, of course, utilize these types of opportunities to network with your colleagues, your peers, people that are in the same boat as you, as far as, you're here, you're getting through your education, maybe you have some similar professional goals in mind. Network and rely on each other as much as the resources here to help kind of build your overall understanding of what everybody is going through, right? You're not alone in this process by any means. So those are some quick tips to kind of help you increase confidence as you work towards resume. So as we build resume confidence, we need to know what we need to help us design a better resume. I can always say this much. You're going to have multiple iterations. You are going to have maybe one master thing that you're utilizing to keep track of everything. And eventually we are going to make it targeted and we're going to have different iterations for different types of industries, right? So, whether you are doing a resume specific for a healthcare internship, or maybe you want to do a entry-level job in social media, there are different things that we're going to highlight about maybe even similar experiences that you have. So recognize that when you're designing a resume, you start with a standard, I'm going to capture everything. And then from there, we are going to specialize and start designing towards the different fields that we're working towards, right? Because maybe you have a little bit more leeway on your format with social media or marketing, or maybe you are going to be a little bit more simple on your format if you're doing something very technical or healthcare related, right? So these are just some basic examples of things we want to think about on how do I want to initially start my approach to resume. So some very quick tips to think about. I have 6 points. If you remember these 6 points, at least we get to a good starting point, right? So make it digestible. Things don't have to be huge paragraphs. A lot of times it's a lot easier to have a few sentences or maybe some key points, right? So digestible qualifications. 2 pages are actually okay for a lot of students. And for a lot of my transfer students, you're not giving yourself enough credit for the time that you spent at your community college. A lot of you have had part-time jobs or have been involved in other areas that actually might make your resume 2 pages and you just don't know it yet. So 2 pages are actually okay for a lot of resumes. And if you don't have 2 pages, 1 page is still great, okay? This hurts me being somewhat artistic. Don't be artistic on your resume. Try and keep it simple, right? Stick to maybe a few colors. If you are going to put some color on there, maybe 1 or 2. Simple format. It needs to get through, a lot of times resumes need to get through what's called ATS, which is a automated system that kind of reviews and reads through looking for keywords and definitions. So if you have a lot of pictures and graphics and extra formats, that doesn't always translate properly, and we want to be mindful. Besides that, again, I mentioned bullet points are great. So Google has a good example of achieved X measured through Y by doing Z. There's a ton of different ways you can do these bullet points, but basically it's showing what is something that you are able to do or that you have done and how we got there, right? Walk me through the process of what you have been able to achieve. And that helps me understand some of the cool things that you've already done, or maybe some skills or abilities that you already have at your disposal. Active language is great. We'll go over maybe some interesting or strong verb choices that you could use for that. And then quantify and qualify a lot of what you're talking about. So if you can't add numbers to it to give context to deliverables, that's okay. Maybe you're going to qualify, an achievement or things that give a certain substance to some of the skills that you're developing as you are doing different experiences. So these are some just basic tips, right? Digestible, 1 to 2 pages, keep it simple, bullet points, active language, and quantify and qualify. So before we jump into everything, because this is a series that involves research, we are going to see positions that go a little bit different from a resume. Those positions are ones that might ask for a curriculum vitae, especially if somebody goes into extensive research. They're very different, right? So, some basic comparisons. 1, curriculum vitae is as long as it takes, right? They don't care how long it takes to get all the information. They need all the information. So they will look at publications, it's academic. They have a very specific formula that they typically look at with curriculum vitae. We're not going to go over it today. You can have the rest of your academic career to do that. But I just wanted to point out some understanding of differences with curriculum vitae. Again, it's primarily for research and academics that we see this more of an ask than your traditional resume. But I like to mention both because, as a student, these are 2 different types of formats that we come across all the time for you. All right. And then just a quick, further deep dive. So curriculum vitae is very academic, right? So dissertation, sometimes thesis topic. There's going to be publications, awards, teaching experience, maybe listings of different abstracts, presentations, things that you have done from an academic perspective that involve research, licensures, and any sort of committees or academic related roles that you have had in the history of your academic career or even professional career. So I always like to just put that out there because it feels very different than a resume, which is more kind of a punchy 1 to 2 pager that really just gives me a very select highlight of skills and work that you have done that I should be aware of as a recruiter. So as far as basic formats, I'm not going to read this point by point, but I'm just going to say as a header, you're going to include things like your name, possibly the city that you're from. You could include contact information like phone, email address, LinkedIn account. For my programmers out there, sometimes you can have like a GitHub or a portfolio website that you might want to also include under your header. And then again, keep things short and simple, clean format. Nice thing about headers is that if you do go 2 pages, it automatically reproduces that information on the second page. Next thing in a resume that we see is typically summary qualifications, and in other times even core competencies. And really, this is a way for students to say maybe some key points about themselves. It can be bullet points are very popular, but you can also do 2 or 3 sentences to kind of summarize some key things about you as a qualified applicant for the position that you are applying for. And then I have, this example I pulled was actually from one of my student researchers who was wanting to talk about, highlighting some key lab experience that they've done in maybe one of their a couple of their classes that's relevant to the research position that they're applying for. So you see here, they actually list specific cell information. They talk about some of the laboratory work that they've done, and they give a little bit of a summary of some of this experience. So it's a very basic starting point, and we'll have other examples of this. This is a different sample that I like to put out where sometimes students will have a profile. And so they'll say a little blurb about themselves. I am a motivated pre-med or biology student or programmer looking to do X and highlight or utilize X skills that I have to pursue whatever would be the position that they're applying for, with maybe an anecdote or a little descriptor of something that shows that they have some qualifications they want to highlight. And then in this example, they have core competencies instead of skills or qualifications, so that they could highlight, like, here are the things that I am very competent in. Sometimes we do this, especially when a job position lists core competencies of the job rather than skills and qualifications. And then, of course, education is below that. So the reason I like to start with that is so that we can think about, okay, as we are starting to highlight things about ourselves, when looking at the job, highlight maybe key buzzwords that are coming to you as we're looking at a job description, right? So they'll have rules and responsibilities, qualifications. Sometimes they'll have summary of qualifications or duties. Again, there are different ways that they will word it, but they'll basically tell you, here are the things we would like to see out of the position that you are going to do, right? So I always say, let's think about it and go, okay, so what are the things that they're asking me to do? Okay, for this example, they're asking, okay, it looks like I have under responsibilities and duties some transferable skills like being empathetic, warm, and non-judgmental, maybe some coaching experience or some mentor experience. They're looking at maybe helping with marketing, interesting. What does that mean? Right? So start thinking about what are the things that they're asking me, and are there words or actions or activities I'll start talking about in my resume that are going to highlight some of the same buzzwords or qualifications that you want to talk about in your resume, right? So when thinking about buzzwords, I like to think of, okay, what sort of descriptive languages might fall into different ways to describe yourself? I'm only going to touch on just a few, like under research, maybe there is a lot of analysis. So you might want to say in a job description or in a description of one of your bullet points, analyzed X by doing something, right? Or maybe there is a interpersonal kind of skill that they're looking for, and you were a student org leader. So maybe you can say facilitated group discussion around X topic, right? So these are some descriptors to kind of get the brain going on. Okay, if I know what are the keywords within the resume, maybe I can start adjusting my descriptions of what I'm doing to help market my position a little bit better, right? And so when we put it together in a example, here are some examples. So it's, I like sometimes to use action project results. And so these are actually pulled from some of my student org leaders a couple years ago. But for example, led pre-health student transfer orientation for 100 participants, resulting in a smoother transition for pre-health transfers. I would have said result in a smoother transition for incoming students. That probably would be better wording, but again, these were copied from their descriptors. Developed fundraising strategies, which raised over $6,000 to buy medication for patients belonging to underserved communities. And then they added even additional details like San Diego's North County community, resulting in over 150 medical kits, right? So these are just examples of ways where you're looking at, okay, what is the action word? Developed, moderated, led. So those are things that they're highlighting about themselves. And then the other fun thing about this, the experiences that I'm listing here right now are experiences that did not come from a specific job. Okay, so these are things that are from student organizations or volunteering. So just because you don't have a job that matches that experience doesn't mean you don't have experience that matches the job that you're applying for, right? So you can be doing other activities that we want to highlight the cool things that you are able to do that demonstrate the skills necessary to do the work. So I like to point that out there because all of these examples actually come from things that had nothing to do with being paid. So I want to just make sure you're aware that you can give yourself a lot more credit for a lot of the things that you're doing right now. We can skip the additional ones because I want to kind of get to some of the other areas. So relevant experience can be almost anything, right? Volunteering, internship, work, research, other work, things that you've taken leadership roles in, whether it's a project, maybe community service, maybe you led a project in academics, right? These are all things that can be relevant experience for work. So don't feel a resume has to be just things that I've been paid for in order to have enough on there, okay? And then besides that, I also like to add, especially for my community college students, a lot of you have had access to do some sort of level of technical training. So sometimes you can add those certifications as well under your education or right after education, and that's perfectly fine and helpful. And then any achievements or awards that you're particularly proud of, that can also be noted, especially if the position you're applying for might like to know about some of the areas that you've done well in. So actually, whoop, I went too far ahead. Okay, so I have a few different experiences, examples. I'll go with a 2-pager since we've already kind of focused on a 1-pager sample. So this is another 2-page sample where you have a more traditional format. So I like to say, okay, you have your header up top. Again, you don't have to put your actual address. Usually city and state is fine. Summary or qualifications, profile or core competencies. So like the big highlights you want to talk about. It's relevant skills, education, and then experience, relevant experience. So somebody will ask why might I want to have experience and relevant experience separate? Well, I would actually flip it. Sometimes I'll put relevant experience at the top and highlight, even if it's an older experience, if it's more relevant, I'm going to put it at the top. So I'll sometimes switch it out and put relevant experience at top and then have the rest of my experiences after that so that they know, hey, by the way, I did this one thing that is very relevant to what I'm applying to. So that's going straight to the top of what I'm talking about. And then everything else is for your information, other things that are helpful to know about my experience, right? So that's a strategy that I've worked with students on before. And then other times, students might organize things by, like, let's say, leadership experience, volunteerism, right? Depending on the type of job we're applying for, sometimes they like to know those different characteristics that are helpful for the type of work, right? If I'm working on flying to a nonprofit, maybe they want to know about my leadership and volunteer work a little bit more because that's part of their goals, right? Or if I'm applying to a lab, I'm probably going to stick with most relevant experience, related content, and maybe some specific technical skills that are helpful for a lab, right? So again, we adjust the format, but I want to give people different examples on how you can talk about what you're doing as you're applying to these different opportunities. And then I think we're doing good. No questions so far, so I think we're doing okay. And then real quickly, I know we don't have a huge amount of time, so I wanted to just touch on if you need a cover letter. The answer is you're probably going to need it more often than you think. A lot of the positions will have a option to submit additional documents, which can be a cover letter. Some places don't give you that opportunity. That's fine, that you're okay for the ones that don't have any of those options. But for some of the other ones that might be a little bit more in-depth or involved, a cover letter can be a great way for at least one of the different review processes for you to make a name for yourself as far as why you are doing this, right? So I always say if it's a cover letter, if it's required, do it. If it's an option, do it. If you have the option to submit additional documents that show you're really interested in it, still do it, right? What the cover letter typically is designed to do is help you address directly whoever is hiring or in the hiring process. So address it as like, dear hiring manager, if you know the person, maybe address it to the person, or dear search committee, right? Please do not put to whom it may concern. It's a little too out there. As far as structure and style, usually I see a lot of cover letters or maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs. They tell a story about, who are you in relation to, the work that you're applying for and why you are interested in doing this, right? Why are you a great candidate, or that there's alignment between you and what you're applying for. A lot of times with these cover letters, you're going to pick, if there's 3 things you need to know about me, or if there's very specific things you should know about me for this position, I'm telling you what they are right now, right? So you're highlighting the most specific and applicable skills and reasons. And if it could be copied and pasted from your resume, it's probably not tailored enough, right? It should be unique to the position that you're applying for, and tell them a little bit more about why it's important that you are a great candidate, or that there's a lot of alignment and fit. Like a cover letter, or sorry, like a resume, cover letters usually stick to pretty clean formats. Be mindful of maybe key terms or phrases that have come up in the job description that you can, again, still mirror or talk about in your cover letter. Quantify and still qualify, especially if you're going to focus on, say, 3 key things to know about what you've done. Those better be quantified and qualified to give them a lot of context. And then please use different ways to review, and make sure that whenever you're doing these things, have a second pair of eyes, have a couple of different ways to double check it, right? Use tools. You can use things like JobScan or Grammarly to help you. You can come in to drop-in hours at the Career Center and have a second pair of eyes look at it. Or you can schedule a one-on-one with one of the advisors, but make sure to get feedback from others. All right. And in general, great cover letters should be more than your resume. Demonstrate how you fit either company or culture, even at an organization. They're professional, they're easy to read, and they tell a story, right? So just to end on a quick example of a successful student, this copy has highlights from the advisor. So I'm not going to completely read it out, but just give you as a visual example. Okay, so they knew who the recruiter was, Miss Brown. We changed their names, obviously. And then the actual resume has 3 bullet points where they maybe describe the key things that they've either done or worked on that are very relevant to this position, which is public health coordinator. And then the other highlight that they had about themselves is, I am an asset to your organization because, and they actually just put they're studying exercise science and healthcare education. And the reason why that's an asset, because they explain in the following paragraph, because that they understand these key areas, it's actually perfect for this job that actually goes over things like nutrition, disseminating that information to important populations such as teachers, students, and being able to make an impact on environmental health, right? So what they are going to school for is directly in line with what is necessary for this particular job, and it's something that they're passionate about, right? So again, it doesn't have to be a lot in a cover letter if it's very thoughtful and you're highlighting key things that are important to know about you and why this is such an important opportunity for you to apply to. So I like to kind of, as far as speed run goes, say that those are kind of the key things I like to think about. Again, this is a taste of how to work through resume and cover letter, right? You're not going to be a master, but this gives you an idea that we can actually work through different things that you've done, even if it isn't based off of actual paid work, right? So, because for example, when this person was a public health intern, they weren't being paid as an intern, which is, I have issues with that. But even so, they were able to say that they were able to do some great work even in unpaid work. So, I like to put that out there for everyone. There are a lot of different ways that you can market yourself. And it's just being very thoughtful to what do I highlight about myself? What are the things that make sense for the work that I'm doing? And knowing that everybody has a good starting point, just going through the process. So some final tips: avoid clutter, simplify. Everything on there is valuable space, right? So you don't want to bury anything in heavy text if at all possible, right? Keep your bullet points clean, make it easy to read. Don't assume that they know something that you're referencing. Just be very direct about what something is. And then for my students that aren't as familiar, if it's a resume in the US, I have to include this bullet point because it has come up before. Please don't include any additional personal information, pictures. It sounds weird, like marital status, but like, for example, I had students applying in another country where they asked your blood type. That's not the same at the US. So just make sure, keep it to the basic information and formats, and you should be fine. So with that, I think we're kind of right on time. But some just kind of reminders, submitting your resume and going through this process is about 20 to 30% of the job, okay, or the work. Really, the rest of it is like, I'd say 70 to 80% is really about networking, doing your homework, finding out what are different opportunities, asking questions. That's where I think the lion's share of really learning about what you want to do and putting yourself out there is in the process, right? So don't feel bad if you haven't had the chance to really sit down and do any of this. Now's the opportunity to kind of start practicing, putting it together, knowing that it's not the end of the world if you haven't done much of it. Because again, it's only maybe 20 to 30% of the process. The rest of the time is really knowing where you want to go, trying things out, gaining skills, and knowing that you can give yourself credit for those skills that you've already done. Oh, I think we just jumped. I saw a question. Should we jump into Q&A?
Yeah, did you want to leave any contact information?
Oh, so I left mine. I didn't get to add Bianca's, but when I send out the slide, I will add that. Otherwise, you can also just literally log into Handshake and select any of us for an appointment. And we'd be more than happy to talk, one-on-one about where you're at and what you need to work on. So, I always just like to tell everybody, please use Handshake. It is really hard to see things in email format sometimes because we get a lot of emails. But if you want kind of a set aside specific time, definitely use Handshake as your first line. If you need to just drop in, I like to say triage work in our drop-in hours with our career peer educators, and that happens both virtually and online during this school year. So those are probably, I would say, the best ways to get in contact with us. If you're a pre-health student, or if you're a student in a healthcare organization that needs to ask me questions, then please email me directly. Otherwise, if it's basic pre-health stuff, healthbeat@ucsc.edu. That's my plug. Bianca, if you have any additional plugs or recommendations for contact. let us know.
Yeah, I'm available on Handshake as well. And I'm not sure if it was said at the beginning, but I focus more on supporting our engineering majoring students and adjacent. So if you're in one of the Jacob School majors or math, computer science, data science, all those, that's kind of more of my wheelhouse. I'm happy to support you there. And I'm happy to read this question aloud if you're ready for it, Ron. It said, is there a piece of advice you could offer for applying to internships? Like, what is something that you think would be worth highlighting to seem more appealing?
So as far as with internships, it's really about the type of internship, right? So what's more appealing is somebody who knows, okay, does this internship come from an organization or company, and what are the things that they are valuing, right? Like if like World Wildlife Foundation has a very specific mission, so what's going to really stick out to them is maybe any work that deals with either environmental consciousness or skill sets that help people with the types of jobs within that particular internship, versus like an internship where they need somebody who is good at doing a lot of collaboration with different departments or different specializations. They're going to want you to highlight where you've done that, right? Where have you had to work in a diverse team, or maybe been in a group setting that relied on being able to work with a lot of different people in a lot of different ways to get something done, right? So there's never one easy way to do it, but it's really about making a good impression by looking at what they do, looking at maybe the specific skills and purpose of the work that they are doing, and seeing the best ways you can kind of connect and target highlighting that when you do apply. Shamelessly, I will also say that sometimes it's great to have a LinkedIn profile put together, do some homework on the place that you're applying, and maybe ask either alumni or people that are already connected to that program or organization as a reach out, right? This is where I said 70 to 80% of the work is sometimes more in research and networking. That's part of it, right? You can actually reach out to sometimes a recruiter or an alum that's in that organization, it may be connected to that department, say, hi, I am a UCSD student looking at that internship that happens to be in your department. I would love any opportunity to just ask you some questions about the organization or company culture and the needs or the opportunities with this type of internship. And a lot of times you can end up finding people that are at least willing to give you a few minutes of their time to give you some information that can maybe help highlight the best things about an internship. So that's what I have. Bianca, got anything?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. One of my quick tips is to kind of do exactly what Ron was saying. Go to the page on their website, on the company or organization's website that has the mission statement and values of the org. It is a quick way to get a familiarity with what does this company stand for? What do they value? When I was a recruiter before being in career services, I know that we would interview and then we would have to go back to our hiring managers and say, does this person embody our company value of X? Are they, a good example of Y, which is, important to us in our mission statement. So going to that site, looking and understanding what they stand for, that'll be a way that you can speak to some of those items that you align with, whether it's in your cover letter or maybe in that initial summary at the top or core competency at the top of your resume. And then of course, in an interview. I see we have a few other questions, so
Yep.
I'll go ahead and read the next one. For a CV, do I have to name all the skills I learned from the job? Specify what my tasks were. Okay. So do they have to name all the skills they learned? So maybe the ones that they had more proficiency in versus not, or everything.
I would say, well, CV resume, right? So if we're talking resumes for jobs, two pagers, usually focus on the most relevant skills and whether they're interpersonal or technical. And a lot of students will sometimes put a skills section where they highlight the ones that are the most appropriate for the jobs that they are applying to. So if we're going to highlight them, we put them there, and then maybe using that action project result or action oriented bullet point, we're not going to say the skill, but we're going to demonstrate what does that look like, right? So that's for the resume portion. If we're talking CV, like actual curriculum vitae for research, we don't really highlight the skills as much as it's an academic review of different things that you have done, and usually those types of skills are inherent to how you talk about whatever projects, research, teaching that you have done. So I like to make that distinction because that's a actually big difference between curriculum vitae and resume. Resumes, we see it more called out and clear and succinct, and then curriculum vitae, we see it more from an academic perspective of like these descriptive paragraphs. So I like to make that difference.
Awesome. We have another one here, I think is a great question. How would I go about adding customer service jobs to my resume when they don't apply to my field? Example, how could I implement working at In-N-Out without looking inexperienced in a STEM field?
Ooh, I think we both have good ones for this one. Actually, Bianca, I want to hear yours first. 'Cause you deal
Sure,
with this more than me.
sure, yeah. I mean, I think that first things first, you are learning so many valuable skills by maintaining the responsibility of employment, by showing up, by being on a team, by reporting into leadership. Time and time again, I work with recruiters who tell me they want to know if you are one of the students who is juggling work with school. That can be very impressive to them. So getting that out, first of all. In terms of kind of how you would add it. So think about transferable skills. And if you're not familiar with that terminology, simplest way to think about it is, what are the skills that I gained in this employment that would transfer into another place of employment or another industry? So let's say working at In-N-Out, you're having to work under pressure, you're having to collaborate, you're having those people facing kind of interactions. Those are all going to be very, very helpful. Even if you are, say, an engineer, you're going to have opportunities to collaborate, to be people facing and communicate, to work under pressure and deadlines. So those are probably some of those items that you would want to identify as transferable. Now, at the end of the day, one thing I will say is, we think about your resume, and the priority should be things that are most relevant to your industry, and those should go at the top of your resume. It should be kind of ordered in that the most relevant items are at the top and the less relevant items are lower on the resume. So order of importance. If you have some STEM related projects, those might go sooner in the resume, and then your customer service job might go later in the resume. So long way of saying there is absolutely a place for this on your resume. You'll just want to think strategically about order.
100% agree. The only other thing that I would add is that a lot of times when we have people working customer service jobs, those transferable skills are really people skills. And the nice thing is people skills work everywhere, because unless you are living in a remote place with work that you never see the light of day or anybody ever, highly doubtful that you are not going to be utilizing those skills to some capacity, right? I had a student that was a shift lead at Starbucks. They were responsible for coordinating 4 other people who were all working part-time. That's a little bit of management and leadership skills right there, right? Because they had to be very on top of communication. They had to hold each other accountable to deadlines, being able to show up on time, being able to juggle schedules. And they also had, because they were a shift lead, when something went wrong, guess who had to deal with the angry person, right? So there are a lot of different ways you can think about it. And I always say there, to Bianca's point, transferable skills are really exist everywhere, and we just want to think about how we can best, massage those into the resume or cover letter as we present ourselves to these places.
I think you guys have great insight. I'm wondering if we can take like a maybe go do post Mentimeter, and then we'll come back for more Q&A as they come in. All right, let me share my screen really quick. And so we saw this earlier, right? The pre-workshop Mentimeter activity. So we got a lot of intimidated, unsure, overwhelmed. So Simon will resend the link if you're able to, Simon. If not, I could do it. Thank you. So I'm gonna switch screens now, and we're gonna do post just to kind of see what the feel is after, talking to Ron and Bianca. So how do you feel about crafting a resume right now? Post questions, post presentation. Ooh, we got our first one. Informed, more confident. Awesome. Prepared. Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that Ron and Bianca, you provided tools for students to craft the resume. And like you said, like you won't be master at resume right after, the presentation, but over time and with practice, you now have the tools. And so you will get to that point where, you're gonna craft a great resume. More relaxed, reassured, more confident, inspired. Tie in past work, definitely. I like the question about, transferable skills, like how can I talk about, working in food or retail? I get that question a lot too. So definitely, I like that both of you hit on like transferable skills, and that, that's experience, and that's skills that you're going to be able to use in a future position. More confident, better, but need one-on-one, definitely. I'm glad that Ron and Bianca both, shared their information, and then I will share mine too. And you know that I'm also a resource for transfer students. Knowledgeable. Yeah. Know what I'm saying. Definitely reassured, paired. Any other feelings or phrases that we're feeling right now? I like that the big one is more confident, which I think is a good change, like a good transition from pre to post. Yeah, and that makes me happy that, you're feeling more reassured. So Ron and Bianca, thank you so much. I think you guys have great insight that will be really helpful for our students. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for doing the post workshop or the post activity as well. Yeah, we have like about 5-6 minutes. Any other questions in the Q&A about resumes, what to include? All right. All right. Well, we got some good questions and some good answers from you both. So really appreciate it. I think we got something. Okay, yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mary, for being here. All right. Yeah, I'll stay on for about 5 minutes if anything comes up. But yeah, Ron, Bianca, thank y'all so much for being here.
Happy to help.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Oh, I see a raised hand. Oh, never mind. All right, awesome. All right. Thank you both so much. I think I will end it here. But yeah, appreciate your time. Appreciate your insight. I think it's really helpful. Yeah, we will. I think I'll end it here.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you both.
Bye.